Welcome to X-Rated Sports Network, where we go beyond the surface. Right now, we're talking about the NBA's top 10 players of all time in 2023. We're going to kick it over to Dr. X.
All right, so I have 2023 because it's a fluid situation, people. This is going to change, right? You know, we got Steph Curry is on my list right now. Can't tell you where. We're about to find out right now. And, you know, some other people have graduated and some people had to take off. Hard decisions, but ultimately, it's a fluid situation. So this is 2023, my top 10. So at number 10, I have Stephen Curry. I was waiting for him to win the Finals MVP to actually give him this because I felt, and I feel bad like saying it's because of injuries why LeBron James didn't win that first trophy that Steph has. But, you know, there was no Kyrie Irving, there was no Kevin Love. Then they can't beat them when they should have beat them because that kind of hurt, that Finals hurt. When they lost in the 7th game, Kyrie hit that shot. But then, you know, they had to get Kevin Durant because they weren't an equal match. So now we have Kevin Durant that wins 2 rings and helps them to win 2 rings. A really good Golden State Warrior team, but they couldn't get over the hump without KD. And so I really needed to see Steph win a Finals MVP, and he did that. So I had to, you know, best shooter of all time, in my opinion, and by the metrics and all of that. So he's number 10. Number 9, I have Kevin Durant. Without Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry wouldn't even be on the list because he'd only have 1 ring, in my opinion, right? I respect Steph, best shooter of all time, but without KD and without those injuries in Cleveland, I know it's kind of hard to say, you know, but injuries do play a factor in it. He would only have 1 ring, in my opinion, and 1 Finals MVP. Number 8, Tim Duncan. 4 rings, but he wasn't the helm of all 4 rings. You had Kawhi Leonard, you had Tony Parker. So, in my opinion, Tim Duncan really only has 2 rings as the main man. But still respectable, best power forward of all time. He was a great shot blocker and just an all-around pro. So number 7, Larry Bird. Now, Larry Bird has 3 rings, and he was the Finals MVP for all those. So you got to give up to Larry Bird. And ultimately, let's go on to number 6, Shaquille O'Neal, most dominant big man of all time. 3-peat, you can't, you know, dispute that. And then he goes on and wins another ring with Dwayne Wade. Number 5, Magic Johnson, 5 rings. And the most impressive thing to me, I was watching Winning Time as well, just like my guy B-Dot. And he won that, his first ring, his rookie year, without Cap, I think the last game, and played the center position, had a triple-double, some crazy stats. I don't even want to misquote it, but Magic Johnson is number 5. Number 4, Kobe Bryant. It goes without saying, I just think the fact that he has 5 rings says it all. Shaq wouldn't have 1 without Kobe. Kobe wouldn't have 1 without Shaq. They did a 3-peat together. And I also believe he won 2 without Shaq, which Shaq was pretty pissed about as well. But he won one more than him. So I'm going to give it to Kobe for number 4. Number 3, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. This guy needs to get his respect. I mean, the fact that he was all-time scorer, all-time for many decades, and then he has 6 rings on top of that. And I think his game would translate into this era as well. And then we have number 2, LeBron James. So right away, we can't punish LeBron for having a healthy career, also being very dominant in all the years that he's played. And the numbers speak for themselves. 4 NBA rings, I think on 3 different teams. So you can't say that that goes out saying. Number 2. Number 1 is Michael Jordan. You already know. So that's my list.
Something jumps out at me right off the bat with your list especially, which is interesting. Really looking at 3, 4, 5 when we put it, because we've all obviously, all of us, all 4 of us had these 3 guys on our list, but you in consecutive order right there. Yeah. And it just, begs the question, do you think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the best Laker of all time? Because that's also kind of its own segment, its own question, right? I mean, like for me, it's Magic. I still think he's the best of all time, the best Laker of all time. But if you're putting Kareem at 3, you're saying he's the best Laker of all time. Would you agree with that? Or are you just giving him a different type of respect?
I just feel like he has more rings. And on top of that, it's almost like the Shaq and Kobe debate. Magic wouldn't have rings without Kareem. Kareem wouldn't have rings without Magic. So I just feel like ultimately he won more. And he also was the leading scorer all time, so that just puts him over the top for me.
I'm just going to
say,
and
he was dominant too. The sky hook, changed the game as well.
Sure, before LeBron took over, obviously the leading scorer of all time. But like before these guys jump in, and we're going to give them their due. Yeah. Thank you for putting KD on your list as well. By the way,
absolutely, man.
And I'm glad to see somebody else agrees with me.
Got you, man. Yeah. Anybody else?
My question to you: who do you think you left on your list that was close to being in the top 10? Close.
Oh, that's not on it right now?
Yes.
Nobody. I was having fun taking the old heads off. I'm sorry. I was like, you got a Finals MVP?
Okay. So
you get a car. You get a car. I was giving them out.
Okay, so you didn't think at all of Wilt Chamberlain?
I didn't, because
Bill Russell.
The reason. All right, let's start with Wilt. The reason why, and I think A.M. Pfeffer put me onto this too. It's because Bill Russell has like 6 of his rings, I think.
Right.
And I'm just like, okay, if he was that dominant, why didn't he dominate Bill Russell, who wasn't? I mean, he probably just had the Celtics just were probably a better team, but I can't. But I can't look past that. And then, I mean, Tim Duncan already has 2 Finals MVPs, plus has 4 rings. So I was like, I know he averaged 50, but I would need to see him do that against Shaq. I would need to see them do that against Olajuwon. I need to see them do that against David Robinson, guys that I grew up watching, Patrick Ewing. I mean, would he have been that dominant? I mean, there's guys right now that have Wilt Chamberlain's build right now. How good would they have been back then? We don't know.
Well, that is fair.
And the only reason I'm sticking to that is because he went against Bill Russell and got outplayed every single time. That's the only reason.
I don't know.
Literally,
the only time.
It wasn't every single time, but it was a higher percentage of time than not. And the reality was, sure, through the regular season, there was Wilt doing what you're talking about, 50 and 25. But when it came to playoff time, where was he? Over and over and over again for a long time. Until finally he put it together, obviously, and had a good run right at the end there and won. But Russell has 11 championships. Right, and again,
so
I don't
Bill
get
Russell,
like
I got you for that. So
good team, yeah.
Bill Russell, I respect him. I'm not saying he's not a top player all time. He's just not my top 10, because you watch the Netflix documentary, he says he almost quit because of how bad he was offensively, and that never changed. He was known for defense. He was known for running up the court, almost like a Dennis Rodman and a guy on the Detroit Pistons that time.
Ben Wallace.
Like a role player?
But taller. Not really a role player. He was a leader. He got it done, and he affected the game.
Right there.
What?
The leader. The leadership
I know,
quality.
but there's a lot
alone.
of leaders at that stage, so something has to separate them. So I mean, yeah, I get the rings and stuff. For me, I just need to see him go against a Shaq. Like Tim Duncan went against Shaq and took 2 of his rings, or maybe more. So I just feel like that was what I needed to see as a litmus test. Like, who did you go against that I know that was dominant?
That's a great point.
Also, two things I failed to mention. I hope I mentioned it when I was doing my list. Wilt scored 100 points in a game. I don't care who you're playing, if it's 5'2" or 5 or 7 feet tall. 100 points is 100 points.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Secondly, in regards to Bill Russell, we have to acknowledge that all the stuff that he dealt with off the court, and to still be able to play at such a high level and be focused enough to lead a white-dominated team in the Boston Celtics to all of those championships in a city that was not very nice, I think that also needs to be brought up in terms of how he played. To have the mental strength and the fortitude, all that stuff, not easy to deal with, man. And that's why it was tough. I'm keeping him off my list. It is blasphemous. I'm upset with myself, but it's my list. So it's
on your list?
It's tough. Yeah. It's tough.
It's tough. I mean, honestly, it's a skill thing. Like, if you add social justice and all these things, the list is going to look totally different. We're talking about purely skill and accomplishments.
Agreed.
And honestly, everybody in here has won something and has been a final MVP. Am I right? Yes.
And Oscar Robertson?
Nah.
We're good.
What amazes me, though, is that how great is 1 and 2 for all parties to stand up there and put Michael Jordan and LeBron James as 1 and 2. There was no question. There was no argument. It just, wow, like those guys really stapled themselves as the 2 best basketball players of all time.
I agree. I agree. I can't dispute that.
I know a lot of people that put Kobe over LeBron because of the 5 rings and just his overall skill set.
And he's more aesthetically pleasing to watch than LeBron is.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
I even heard it take Kobe was more skillful than Jordan.
I'm on that list.
Too.
I will live on that mountain alone.
Wow.
I feel that Kobe was more skilled than Michael Jordan was.
But that's what's supposed to happen. It's like you're supposed to do better than your parents, technically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the goal. So I mean, they have more.
He learned to adapt.
You learned from him, then added on top of that.
Absolutely.
So I'm not against it, but ultimately 6 for 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough.
People put
tough.
Kobe above LeBron, but nobody's putting Kobe above Jordan, and most people don't put James above Jordan either. I mean, that's just the reality. We're 4 guys, and maybe a younger generation, some of them obviously will because they never had a chance to see Michael Jordan until the documentary came out, and I'm sure a lot of people watched it, especially through COVID. But, I'd like to think that we're all right. Yeah. Number 1 and number 2, Michael Jordan, LeBron James.
100%.
I like it. All right, that's my list, and I'm sticking to it.
Sticking to it.
Good stuff, Phil.
That's all I got.
System twisted, but we here.